Hey party people, and welcome back to MVM. And today I'm here with a Kickstarter preview of Primal, The Awakening. And this game has a lot of hype behind it. As a matter of fact, I was one of those people that was super hype about this game a year ago, thinking it was going to hit Kickstarter in 2020. But this was my most anticipated Kickstarter last year. Well, now it's here this year. I'm going to show you how this game works. It's a 1 to 4 player game, plays in about 60 to 90 minutes. And you are taking on the roles of these heroes that are going out and basically completing these contracts and fighting monsters. And the monsters have different fight terrains, and you're going to be moving around this kind of four section battlefield, fighting over 10 rounds, trying to take this monster out. You'll be playing card combos, supporting each other, defending yourselves, and also triggering reactions with the monster in a pretty interesting way, similar to some of the games you may know of, one of them being Kingdom Death Monster. But this is not a clone. This has a lot of other things going on in it that make it different than even some of the games you've seen recently, fun on Kickstarter like Aeon's Trespass, Wild Ascent, other games in that vein. We're going to show you how the game does work, but I'm also going to focus a little bit more on the campaign today so that you get an idea of how that works, to see how you feel about the bigger scale of this. A lot of previewers have been touching on the prologue. I'll kind of start after the prologue, but I'll talk about it a little bit because there are one-shot opportunities that you can do to play at game night. So let's go ahead and get to the boards and talk more about Primal the Awakening. All right, party people, let's get started. I'm going to explain some of the campaign elements so you get an idea of what you're working with here and how things open up, and then we'll get into how the actual game plays here on the board. You've seen a lot of videos about that, so I do want to focus some of this on the actual campaign elements. All right, so you're going to fight a monster in a prologue. The ones you've probably seen in other previews are going to be the dragon. So this is after you fight the dragon, you'll come back and you'll have an event phase. The event phase may be just similar to other games. When you come back, there's going to be something that happens. And that depends win, loss, where you are in the campaign, that kind of thing like that. Campaign is 11 to 15 games, and it's kind of based on your win and loss rate and monsters you may have fought previously and things like that. So when you come back, depending on the monster you beat, you will have specific resources. These can include basic things like blood and scales and stuff like that, bones, but you may also have elements because you're fighting, let's say, the dragon, you're going to get fire elements. And you fight another thing, you may get water elements. Who knows what that kind of stuff is. You also get like kind of minerals and things like that. They're used to make different potions and stuff, buff stuff. And then you also get these kind of terrain herbs. So those may come from maybe when you're fighting them, the terrain becomes part of your stuff you can gather, right, to bring it back. I don't necessarily know all that stuff right there. But when you come back, you're also going to maybe unlock, based on the monsters you meet, these different spots here, which I'm going to talk about in a second here. So after your event phase, you will have a quest board where you can decide where you want to go. Let's say you're going to be choosing a contract that you may get. These contracts, they have different monsters that you can beat, and this one has a 1, and it's telling me to beat Koron, and it's also telling me to beat Tormat, and I can choose which one of these I want. It's also going to tell me the element for the monster, which is important for my preparation, so I have that part of that. And then our garrison phase is actually where I will do my upgrading. I can change my deck. I can, buy new weapons. I can also start to think about how I want to prepare myself for the monster I want. So the actual scenario that they've given me for the campaign, they've actually added specific cards. They've bought weapons and items for my team, and I'm playing with those. Now, what do the upgrade cards look like? They could just be simply moving from one level to a level 2. The levels are shared in this game, so you're going to be earning experience based on just beating a monster, maybe completing a certain number, fighting a certain number of rounds, pulling off a certain objective, doing different things like that to kind of pull them off. But you will get XP for doing so. That will level up everybody. But actual resources and weapons and stuff, that's all your own. And it is also restricted to the type of character. So as you build these things, you have to pay attention to the type of character you have. You can't just build something and give a sword and shield to a person who has a big buster sword, that kind of thing like that. So you have the ones they gave to us is the Fireforge and the Alchemist. And what you would do is trade in specific resources in order to build some of this stuff. So I actually have a quick little example to show you that kind of stuff, but you're basically just turning in regular resources and turning them into different ones. They will be signified by different colors. So you'll have your base one, which is just black, and then you'll have your other ones, which are different colors representing those types. The interesting part that you want to pay attention to, especially for armor, is that it's going to be more armor, which is your health in this game. Your combined armor is your health, but it also will change the layout of your deck for the game. So you'll have different cards that will go in and out, and I'll explain the cards when we go through the campaign, but also the abilities of that card and the strength of that card. So this is something that you want to pay attention to. And as you shuffle more cards in, you can definitely tell that the way you're playing is going to be a little bit different. You may also get different mastery cards. Once again, we'll talk about when the game comes. But that's really what happens, and then we go off on that quest that we chose to play. And then boom, we have a big setup. Now they have some big sheets that kind of explain the story. There is a story to this. And some of the things you need to watch out for overall with the campaign is you're going to be keeping track of your character and your own items and stuff like that. But overall, you're going to have a campaign sheet that will show the experiences that you had. And it's really easy to save this stuff and get right back into it. But the big overarching thing is you can't die a certain amount of times. There's a certain amount of death that you can have in this game, and you would lose the campaign. So be very, very mindful of that. Try to get your characters out of being KO'd. But that's a general overview of the campaign. And I'm thankful that they showed us some of the things that you see before you here today on my table, but that's not all the stuff. So I would say go ahead and look at the Kickstarter page to find out. Remember, this is only a prototype. Now I'm going to show you how this game plays. Let's get to it. All right, party people, let's dig into the actual gameplay. Now we are past the prologue. We've kind of showed you that in a little bit of the campaign setup. But now we are into the actual gameplay. We set up for Tormont. They gave us the requirements, what he's weak and strong against, that kind of stuff that will change how we want to set up things. And we have all this equipment now. I'm assuming this will be a little bit further in the campaign, but they kind of gave us some cool stuff to make us feel strong in this one. A game, an actual hunt, is played over 10 rounds, or I should say a scenario. It's not called hunt. You're going to be playing it over 10 rounds, and you need to kill the monster over its 3 phases before the 10th round. If you do not, you lose. If you are KO'd, if all players are KO'd, they lose. And it's a little bit of a long process. It's actually a two-round process for you to come back and recover. It's pretty tough, and then half your health is depleted. So you got that going on. It can get pretty ugly here. But as you can see, you have a terrain over here. Some of the things are set up specifically for a scenario, like we're placing Tormat, who has like kind of a bashing effect to it, and then it will bash some of these things, and it will create more rocks, which will kind of work with the stuff over here. And I'll explain that as it goes, but you have things that will make it harder to move. You have things that will give you extra health. I'm going to bring something over here for you maybe. We got some more terrain over here. I know I don't. Oh, here we go. I got a little bush over here that I can add, and some of these things will heal. Some of them will help you hide. There's even ones that will give you buff to your attacks and stuff like that. So let's go over here and look at the monster board for Tormat and give you how this lays out. Each boss has a health over here, and it's according to how many players are playing. They will have stages. So they'll have stage 1, which is 30, 30, 45, and this also changes depending on the monster. It's not the same all the time. When you defeat them and you add enough health to this board, they will move into another stance, and those stances will also tell you the type of damage they will deal from attrition. It will also kind of give you a level of what they are on the top right there and on the bottom right of here and all the cards that are there. So it kind of gives you if it's a level 1, 2, or 3 monster. And then it also has this thing called attrition that will show you how much it attacks for. When these cards are revealed, sometimes they have different abilities that will make them stronger. And this will also show you where they can be attacked, where they can't be attacked from, and then the parts where they can be attacked. And that size can increase or become tunnel vision depending on the type of monster. This one kind of stays the same. The monster, the dragon has like a little thing where it kind of opens up a little bit more where you can attack it. So positioning is key. What you're looking at here are these cards that are kind of the reaction to the game. And we'll talk about this a little bit more deeply, but this is like the reaction cards, the program where you're playing cards and they react to them. We have the attrition deck, which will play after the characters take their turn. But over here we have peril, and then we have these mission objectives. These peril cards will change along with the different stages where they're at, and they're kind of condition setups. Like for this one, it says the upkeep, which is after a certain part. If Torment has 4 struggle tokens, it also gains these armor tokens, and it just so happens to have these armor tokens, which gives it like a kind of a fend off 1 attack. It's like a shield in a sense. But each one of the monsters has these objectives, and these objectives are kind of thematic for that monster. So like this guy right here, he bashes these rocks, and it kind of like confuses them or whatever, and you actually can pull off sort of a combo. They have a specific card for that. I'm assuming that other monsters would have something similar. So this is something that happens. The dragon actually has a thing where you kind of get behind it and you cut its tail, and then when a specific card is flipped over, it's weak and it actually loses health. So if you're similar to something with King of Death Monster, you would know that. These are struggle tokens, and we'll get right into that as we go along, but other things is the type, what monster it is, and that goes back to the object cards, objective cards, or contract cards, as I say. Looking at these characters, they all have their own specific type of weapons. Right here, I'm looking at Thorag. He has a gigantic hammer, and Mariah, she has the bow. We also have type of weapons, so fire. We have the deck requirements, and once again, those are different than the basics, so they're going to tell you how to fill your deck. And then you have some kind of ability that they'll have for playing a card in their sequence. Also the strength of that weapon. So there's different strengths depending on the type of weapon you have. And as you upgrade them, they will have better strengths. You also have these different types of armor. Armor is actually equal to your health. So you have 7 and 4 in this case, which equals 11. And for her, it's 5 and 4, which equals 9. All the different weapons and also the armor will have strengths and weaknesses. So the armor actually says it's strong to 2 things and then it's weak to 2 things. So this is something you got to pay attention to because it will give them a buff when they're attacking you, and maybe you a buff when you're attacking them, depending on what these things are. They also have triggers that they will have. We also got a potion for this game to kind of show you how it works, like a health to kind of help you out, and it's conditional based on this attrition deck, so it's kind of a way to heal. You use it, it's gone. We have they have these mastery cards. Really interesting thing here is when a specific thing is dealt, when a specific situation happens, I stun a monster, I place a counter on here, and they have a lot of these counters. You place them on there, and then when you reach a certain number, you flip this over, and now you have a specific combo that can be unlocked, or a specific condition that buffs you up, makes you a lot stronger. So there's that card right there. And those change. They gave us several ones for different types, different characters. I should mention they do have kind of an aggressive Buster Sword type character with these big sword. And they also have a big shield and sword guy who's kind of better at protecting and sacrificing himself, and he has a really cool mastery card that it kind of explains that. The fighter is a little bit more aggressive, and they have more fighting cards, red cards, stuff like that. We're about to get into the cards. But we have Thorag, who is a little bit more stunning, buffing, and also formidable in strength as well. And then we'll move on to Mariah. Mariah is a bow hunter. She has like stealth and aim. She also has a thing like a volley where she can take cards and flip them over and add to her damage. But yeah, they kind of set this up for different themes within their deck, so you understand that. And you just try to fulfill your mastery so you can get a little bit more buff, take enemies out, go through their health, and then boom, you will take them out if you do this 3 times in a sense. So 30, 30, and 45. All right, let's get to a round of the game here. So we have, you have a monster phase, and then you have an action phase, and that's it. In the monster phase, something very, very simple. We're going to be placing our characters according to setup, I should say that. And sometimes they give you options and set this terrain up. So in the monster phase, a couple things happen. They are going to cycle through the deck according to the smallest card here. So this will go on the side. And if they ever run out of cards here, they'll add what's called struggle to here. And we're going to get to that in a second, but that's the struggle tokens are kind of like how they pop off a little bit. They unleash stuff. So this is important. You're going to take enough struggle according to how many players you have. So if it was two players, you get 2 struggle. There's a total of 10 struggle, and if they ever get to that, and think of it thematically as they're losing their mind, they're getting angry, you're fighting them, they're like swinging left and right, like that kind of thing. And then once they get to 10, they have an unleash according to their attrition level, and it does go up. Like this one goes to 3 attack. You can't block it according to what level they're at that time. So this one right here is 2, and the monster that's the first prologue one is only 1. So I think it just gets up to 1 and 2. So it's something you got to pay attention to each time what's going on here. So they will do that, and then we move on to the action phase, which is us. We will have 5 cards in the beginning of the game, and you'll be able to mulligan and switch some things out to start off the game. But I'm going to explain the cards. You have different types of cards. You have an attack card, you have a maneuver card, and you have a parry and a dodge. Okay, and they have different colors. These 2 are offensive cards. These 2 are defensive cards. These are going to have attacks that represent the exact same as your weapon. You'll look at your weapon and you will apply that damage. You have your stamina at the bottom, how much the card costs to play. So you will play the stamina cost at the bottom to pay for this card, maybe paying this right here. Let's say specifically, I would want to play this card right here. I would have to pay 2 of my stamina right here, and I would place that in my discard pile, and I will be creating what's called a sequence. It's a set of cards that I would play for that. You also have your blue cards, which are maneuver cards. They actually take away 1 struggle for the enemy. So then you know that you're kind of helping kind of settle things down a little bit. So you're stopping them from getting the 10. And then you also have these 2 dodge cards. Some of these cards will have keywords like assist, reaction, and those can be used to help other characters on their turns. But these are considered defensive cards because if they're in your sequence, they help you defend yourself. And I'll show you how that works out. But that's the run of how all that works. And what we'll do is when we start to play our turn, it begins like this. And I really want to make sure I get this in order here. You are going to start out and have a choice to move. In order to do that, you must spend the stamina of 1 card, or 1 card stamina. All right, so I should say 1 stamina, not 1 card. So I would have to pay at least 1 stamina, and you can overpay. So I would spend, let's say I spent, let's see, I'm going to go ahead and just play this card here, spend 1 stamina like that, okay? When I do that, yeah, I'm going to do that. Okay, so I spend 1 stamina. I can move over 1 spot. Now I can choose not to move, and when I don't move, I get something called threat, and that will affect what's going on here. I'm actually going to just leave the tokens out here so you can see what's going on. But in this example, I think I'm going to stay, actually. I'm going to stay. I want to stay. I want all my cards. All right, so I want to create a sequence. And I want all my cards, but this is kind of dangerous. So what will happen is I will start to play what's called a sequence. I'll look at my cards, and then I'll go ahead and show you how a round of this plays. Let me go ahead and slide Mira to the side and get you see how some of this sequence stuff works out, and see if this is something you're interested in. Let's do it. Okay, I wanted to change some things up to kind of fit this scenario here, so let me kind of re-explain some things. We are at the beginning of the turn, and you are in the front. You are in front of the character. There may be cards triggering, like this one right here, if you are in the front of them. So you have an option to move. If you don't move, you get a threat token. That threat token will make you draw additional cards for what's called attrition, which we'll talk about a little bit later. But for right now, I am going to pay to move. It costs 1 stamina to move. So I'm just going to pay this card right here. This is one of the defensive cards, so this parry will go in here, and I'm paying with 2 stamina, but that's not going to trickle over to other cards to create a stamina pool. That doesn't work like that in this game. So that allows me to move. Just so you know, if I start here, I actually have different, and there's different things for different games. This happens to have rocks, but this is a healer, and if you're there, when you start your turn, you heal 1. And this makes things harder to move. It's going to cost you additional movement. So if I wanted to move in here, I'd have to pay more stamina. All right, so now I'm in a spot where I actually could hit the monster, so that's important. I also want to pay attention to these peril cards, like this one right here says he gets a struggle when I move, so I got to put a struggle on there. And I got to pay attention to this stuff, like these behaviors and stuff over here. All right, so I'm going to play a card. And my first card I'm going to play is this nasty attack one right here. So I'm going to play with concussion right here. So I'm going to pay this cost 3. I'm going to pay the 3 stamina, put it right here. Done deal. All right, so now I played it. I will get an aggro token because I am playing a card with this icon on it, and that would happen for her. It would immediately go to her if she was playing a card as well that had this like little dragon bull looking thing here. This is an offensive card, so it would trigger my weapon. I would look at the bottom. It's going to do 4 damage. All right, so that will automatically happen. I may also trigger something on here, so you just have to pay attention to that. When you empty your hand, place a counter on this card, and then it says remove 2 counters to deal 4 damage. And then I also have this gauntlet, so I've actually paid 3 to do this, and it says when you pay 2 stamina plus for a red card, your attack deals +1 damage, but since I'm using a fire weapon, it's actually going to do 2 extra damage. So I'm going to play this. It's going to be 4 + 2, which is 6. And then I'm going to look at the script on my cards because these have different features on them. So you're paying attention to these features. One, my word has rampage, so it's a key word that I want to pay attention to. But it also has some additional stuff. I get 2 times my level, which is 2. My level is 1, so it's 2 times 1. And then that would be damage. So I get 4, 6, 8 based on that. And then I also played this with opening. So at the beginning of my turn here, I would inflict vulnerable. So the next attack that I make will be double. So we'll deal with that first, and I'm just going to simulate this. It would be, what was that, 2, 4, let's see, 2, 4, 6, and then 8. I would apply that damage. Now, there's a reaction from the monster. So let's see what the reaction is because I played a red card. And that's what you would do. You do everything you need to do, and then the monster will react based on whatever you played, if it matches. It deals 1 damage to all players in the front sector. Well, I'm not in the front sector anymore. If targeted players may discard a card from their hand or destroy a rock terrain in their sector to avoid that damage. I'm not there, so it doesn't count. But if I was, they would actually spin this to gain an acceleration token. And it's already has an acceleration. It gains 3 struggle. So that's the thing. Tormac gains an acceleration token, and if it already has an acceleration, it gains 3 struggle. And acceleration, I believe that's the one where you just draw an extra attrition card there. So you just, you gain an extra struggle. So it kind of escalates them a little bit faster. And they will always spin to do this as long as they have extra struggle to pay for it. There you go. So this goes away, and then we put this here, like that. And now we continue playing. So maybe I want to play this one right here. All right, I'm going attack heavy. So I need to play at least 2. I have 3. I'm going to play that. And I should say some of the keywords will actually activate if you have that card on the top of your deck. So that's kind of important too. Some cards will say if you have this on the top of your deck, something will happen. So we already know this is going to do 4 damage plus 2, which is 6. And then this one actually has a arrow, and these may have an arrow this way or that way, or they'll say, hey, if you played a specific type of card, do this thing. This one happens to say if there's a red card this way, it will stun them and confuse them. But remember, I have double the damage because they're vulnerable. So this is crazy, right? 4, 2, 8 times 2 is 16. So yeah, wait, so what's that? Wait, sorry. 4 and 2 is 6. So 6 times 2 is 12. And then I would also, and I'm just going to throw all that on there. And then I would also stun them, which means that I can make it so one of these things can't happen, that kind of thing like that. And then I can confuse them, which would mean I can take the first 2 cards off the top of their deck and then switch them up and put them on there. I believe that's exactly what it is. And then that would be the end of my turn if I don't have any more cards to play. But I also can choose to, let's say if I had these cards, I can keep 2 cards in my hand if I didn't want to play them, let's say to play all this stuff, and I just kept 2 cards. If I do that, I can bank a stamina token, like so. But once I'm done playing cards into what's called my sequence, I will go over to this attrition, and I'm just going to put these cards over here like this, just like this, and just kind of make a situation up. So let's say that was my sequence. I would flip 1 card, 1 card from the attrition deck if I had no threat. So I would have to put up a defense. And remember I was saying these green cards and yellow cards are defense, and each one of them represents 1 defense. If I have both of these cards, I would not get any damage. All right. If I have 1 card, I can only block 1 of that damage. So if he hits me, he's going to do something according to his level of attrition, this attrition. So it's going to do 2 damage to me. All right, I can only block 1 of those. So this one you have to put heavy defense in your sequence to protect yourself. And there are things that other characters can do. They may have reaction cards or assist cards that help me put more cards in my hand. But you got to protect yourself in here. They'll have 0s, 1s, 2s, and 3s. So you just got to pay attention to how the deck is working at that time. But after the attrition is played, you're going to bring back all your cards. Okay, all the cards you played, everything. And you're going to do that in order. So I should have done this like this. So you're going to basically do this in order. And this is important because there's certain cards that will trigger based on the sequence you played. All right. And then you'll put this right here. You'll draw 5 more cards. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 4, 5. Ooh, I got a little interesting hand going on here. All right. So now I got an interesting hand going on there. And then whoever has the aggro token, it will turn towards them. And now it would be Milady's turn over here. But the interesting thing that's going on here is you can also make events happen. There are event cards in here, and they actually trigger right here because if I play a blue card to my sequence, I can trigger one of these, and it actually has a condition here. If the active player discards a blue, I can just discard one and make this trigger. Some of the other things, like this card would react because I turned him this way. This is what that icon states. So it'll say here, deal 2 damage to all players in the rear section. If no players are in the rear section, all players in the flank sector suffer damage. So I'm going to take 2 damage to her. Also, since you can pay 2 of these, it says targets can avoid damage only by destroying a rock terrain in the sector. Targeted players can discard stuff from their hand or destroy a rock terrain in the sector to avoid damage. So I can destroy this rock to save myself from damage. And then after she goes, the round moves on. So I was in round 1, I would move to round 2. And that's really it. We will begin the monster phase again. This card goes out, and it looks like this is going to happen again when at the end of their turn. So you kind of are paying attention to the stuff. The monster won't move as much, but they will react to everything. I hope that gives you an idea. The really big thing here is that you want to get specific cards in your sequence, maybe like the blue here that removes one of the struggle tokens. Once again, you want to have enough defense. Some of these cards will allow you to go back in your deck and grab specific cards. Once again, there's reaction cards and things like that. I would show you more, but we have been here for a long time. I hope that gives you an idea of how this game works. It's a lot. It's a lot. But hopefully I give you an understanding of how this works. Let's go ahead and get to my final thoughts. All right, Barty, your final thoughts here on Primal, The Awakening. There's a lot going on here. And Mr. Hype Boy from 2020 is still here in 2021. So take my opinion with a grain of salt. I want you to know that going in. You probably could tell anyway. But let's just start with the basics here. This is a very different kind of feel, all right? Some of you were thinking maybe this was going to be similar to KDM. Well, if you consider having a monster AI deck like one that reacts to where you hit it, there's some similarity there. If you think games that have base camps that you develop is all KDM, then that's fine as well. But this stuff feels just inspired because this one right here has so many things that go on with cards and how they play out and how you upgrade and use them, the board and how you move around in the tactically, and the communication that needs to be had by your play of cards and positioning at the time you use those cards, the monster AI and how it has objectives that actually work to your advantage. There's just so much that goes on that's at play in this game. And I think some of the other things that really kind of line up are almost minor. I don't know how deep the forge stuff and all these other buildings goes, but I just get the feeling that there's more going on here that is something that I'm interested in. I've seen like the struggle token system. At first I didn't think it was that interesting, and then I realized what can happen if you allow more and more of them to stack up, and you got other things to worry about. You're trying to keep your players alive, and there's just so many little small things that kept coming up that I was just like, this feels different. This feels familiar yet different. And the styles of the different characters is probably what made me feel that I was playing a different type of game. Of course, there are things that are going to make them similar as well, but just by playing the types of cards. But they definitely, as you start to gear them up, like they showed us for, like I was shown in the Tormat fight, they kind of gave us different, different types of weapons and gear. It showed the potential of how different you can be. Now that would probably be the closest thing to KDM, but I often found myself like, feels different. This just felt different, for me at least. This game is basic. This is the basic bottom line for this game. It's simple enough for you to understand. It's complex enough where you got to make a ton of important decisions by making simple choices in the beginning of each turn. And then you're going to make more complex choices of how you're going to combo your cards and who's going to maybe support you and things like that. You also got to bake in how you're going to react to these monsters. So there's a lot of different little things on there that make it more complex. And so it's, simple, complex, and just flat out a fun experience. This game, it has huge potential. And I don't know what it's like. Of course, this is going to be a prototype, but they've presented enough to tell me that you can be very interested in making a campaign and you'd be fine. That's 11, 15 scenarios. You go through it, you upgrade, you get all this stuff. Or you can just go one shot. And I happen to think that this is a really good candidate for, 1-2 shot and a game night. So if that's something that interests you, I think this is something you may want to just take a deeper look at and see if that's something that you would want to purchase a game like this for. But I wouldn't. I mean, that's basically what I did, is play 2 one-shots in this game. They just hooked me up with some of the campaign stuff so I can see it. All right, I think that's all you really need to know, because I don't want to inject too much of my opinion. Hopefully I helped you make an informed backing decision today. I can never tell you what to do with your money, but as you can see, I was pretty hype on this game, and I think you can sense my passion behind it. And I'll leave it right there. I would like to thank you for watching this preview today, and I'd like to thank Reggie Games for sponsoring this video. I hope that I helped you once again, and if you have any questions, just ask them in the comments below, and I'll try to answer them as best as possible. Just make sure you head over to the Kickstarter page for more details for this game. All right, party people, you take care. Have a wonderful day.